A lot of MMA fans talk about how bad the UFC's heavyweight division is right now, but I think 205 pounds is a complete disaster right now, and I'm going to talk about why in today's video. My name is James Lynch. So if we look at the top of the screen here, you'll see we have Carlos Ulberg as the current champion, and of course, amazing win over Yuri Prochazka, getting the first round finish in that one. He becomes the new champ. But as we know, he had a knee injury going into the fight. We see him here get the surgery. And right now, Dana White was asked about it, at least recently, and he says that there could be an interim title to do this. And this is actually a title that's been cursed for quite some time. I'd say basically since John Jones has left the division, and we can go through the history of the light heavyweight division since John Jones has left, because it's been a lot of moving parts, a lot of new champions, a lot of things have happened there. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's talk right now about the state of the light heavyweight division. So right now we have a champion that we don't know when he's going to be back. An ACL injury is pretty serious. I'm no doctor, obviously. I'm here talking about MMA instead. But it could be a while, and I think an interim title fight is likely going to happen. If you do the math here, the UFC does too many events. They do events pretty much every weekend. They're going to need, for those numbered events, big fights, big main events. That's where an interim title fight does make sense, and they're not going to wait around for Carlos Ulberg to come back and defend his title. They probably don't want to rush him back either. He's 35 years old. Again, there's a lot of reasons to think that an interim title fight will happen next, and the problem with that is there aren't really any clear-cut contenders. We'll talk about that a little bit later too, but let's go down the list here. So Ulberg going to be out for a bit, right? He's there. Alex Pereira is out of the division right now, at least for the time being. He's going to be fighting Cyril Gane on the White House card for the interim heavyweight title. It really doesn't look like Pereira is going to be coming back down. He's another guy, another fighter, I should say, that's getting up there in age. I don't really see a reason why he would come back down. He vacated the title. I don't think there's much of a need, and there aren't really any big marquee fights from him at 205 either. So I think it's safe to say that Pereira is out. So we can remove him from the division, and that's obviously a big hole to fill because Pereira is one of the biggest stars in the UFC right now. Yuri Prochazka just lost, right? He got knocked out. He's probably good for him to take some time off, not to mention the fact he became a father. He's going to be sidelined for a bit too. I'm sure we will see him fight again this year, but when? I think it's going to be a bit of a while before we see him back. So he's out of the equation. Jan Blachowicz was supposed to fight Bogdan Gustaf in their rematch at UFC 328. Jan Blachowicz announces on Instagram he is out because of a meniscus injury. And Jan Blachowicz, not exactly young. He's, I believe, 42 right now. Let me just double check that. I mean, there's a possibility Jan Blachowicz might not fight again. He's had a lot of injuries and layoffs, and he's 43, just turned 43. I don't know. It's going to be tough. Even if he does come back, what type of Jan Blachowicz are we going to get? And again, I think Jan's a great fighter, but we did see in that last fight with Bogdan, he did get dropped in that fight. You know, I think at 43, it's going to be really tough for Jan Blachowicz to make any noise in that division, so we can rule him out. Khalil Roundtree's around. He's one of the guys that does not have a fight booked. I'm not really sure what's going on with him. I know there were some rumblings about a fight here, but he has not fought since the Yuri fight last year. And we don't really know what's going on here. They're going to need, again, if they're going to do an interim light heavyweight title fight, he might have to be one of the options, and it doesn't really make sense because he's coming off a loss. How often do fighters get title shots based off losses? Doesn't really happen too often, but I really don't know who else would fit the bill here. To me, I could see them doing a potential Khalil Roundtree and a Paulo Costa fight. Paulo Costa just beat Azamat. That's a fight I think the UFC would want to put together. Remember, we're in the Paramount era, so they want exciting fights. Khalil and Paulo Costa would be a very exciting fight. I could see that happening, and then passing over someone like Magomed Ankalaev, who I just forgot in this video is ranked number 1. What's going on with Ankalaev? We've heard no news. There's been no media. There's been no nothing from Ankalaev really since his last fight against Pereira. And, you know, I've said this before, I would like Ankalaev to do more media to at least, you know, give fans an update of what's going on. But that fight was in October. It is April 21st today. What's going on with Ankalaev? Why is he not getting booked? They should have done him and Khalil Roundtree, to be honest, with two fighters coming off losses. That made a ton of sense right now. They need to do something with Ankalaev. So again, you got Ankalaev, you got Roundtree. Those are the two names that are sort of floating out there. But then you've also got this possibility of an interim light heavyweight title as well. So they might need to use either of them for there. If we're going off merit, it really should be Ankalaev and Paulo Costa next. Costa's coming off a win. Yes, Ankalaev's coming off a loss, but he's a former champion. That should hold some weight. So I think if you're going with merit, it's got to be Ankalaev and Costa. If you're going with entertainment, the Paramount era, then they probably do Khalil Roundtree and Jan Blachowicz. Jamal Hill's still out. If you guys missed my interview with him late last year on Home of Fight, he basically told me he thinks he's going to be out until the end of this year, like in the winter. Now, I did see some stuff about him training again in Vegas, so I don't know how that's going. But if you're Jamal Hill, with the amount of injuries he's had and the amount of setbacks he's had, why would you want to rush back and take this? Take that extra time off and make sure you're really good to go. And he's another guy that I wonder, is he ever going to be the same with all of his injuries? You know, Jamal's younger than Jan Blachowicz, but he's taken a ton of damage so far. I already mentioned Costa. He's in a good spot. He's probably the only fighter on this list that's in a good position right now because he's coming off a win. Then you got Azamat Murzakanov, who just got finished. He's going to probably take some time off. Dominic Reyes is coming off a win. Is the UFC very eager to rebook Dominic Reyes after that performance with Johnny Walker? I'm not so sure about that. And Reyes is another guy potentially that could be put in a title fight situation, which is crazy to think, being ranked number 9, that he could be getting a title shot next. But he's one of the few guys that's coming off a win. Again, if we're just basing this off who's got a win in their last fight, it would be Reyes and Costa for an interim title, which I don't really think makes a lot of sense because Reyes got knocked out the fight before. So there's that. We got Bogdan, who needs an opponent. Maybe the UFC gives Reyes Bogdan. That could be a possibility. I don't know if they'll put him on 328, but maybe Bogdan's going to need an opponent, and I think Reyes would fit the bill. Maybe they do Paulo Costa and Bogdan. I'm not sure. Volkan Ozdemir, I think, has a fight booked. I'm not entirely sure. And he hardly fights either. And you'll notice something with Volkan Ozdemir. Yeah, he hasn't fought since November. He doesn't fight in the US anymore. I think there's something legal, some criminal stuff that's happened before, some stuff on his record, I should say. I shouldn't say criminal. I don't know if any of that's been proven, but he doesn't fight in the US. And that's part of the reason he barely fights, is because they only use him for international cards. He hasn't fought in the US in a long time. And I think part of that is due to his record. He's not allowed to get across the US border. So he's another guy you can't really use that much, right? Now, if we go back to the rankings again, and we go down the rest of the list, we're almost done at the end of the rankings here, guys. It's not looking too good. So if we go down a bit further here, Alexander Rakic. I just saw something on Reddit the other day. It says like Rakic is finally making the move to heavyweight. He puts the heavyweight caption here. He's been on quite the skid right now. Might not be the worst idea. He's a pretty tall guy for the division. Maybe it would be a bit better if he heads up there. So again, we're talking about a guy who's on a losing streak and potentially could be leaving the weight class. So again, not a lot to take away from Rakic if he's moving up weight classes. You've got Johnny Walker, who's coming off a loss, lost a bit of momentum. Obviously, he had the win over Zhang, then loses to Dominic Reyes, so I don't know where he fits. He's another option potentially. You've got Nikita Krylov, who I don't even know what's going on with him either. Krylov, is he booked? He just beat Modestas back in January. He probably needs to get a fight booked. You could also do Krylov and Ozdemir fighting each other again. Or you could do him fighting Actually, Krylov and Bogdan would make some sense, potentially. And then you got Alonzo Menafield at 15, which, nothing against Alonzo. Fun guy to watch, exciting fighter. He's getting up there in age. So he's 38. He's going to be 39 this year. This is one of the tough, I hate to say it, this is one of the, the weakest divisions right now, and it's a complete mess. And you remove Pereira from the rankings, who's next man up? I don't even know who would be ranked 15 right now. So again, I think a lot of fans don't really keep an eye on this stuff and don't really look at just how bad things are at 205. And I mentioned ever since John Jones left the weight class, it's been a bit of a disaster, right? We had the Glover Teixeira fight where, so obviously Glover got to fight for the title against Jan Blachowicz, I believe, when John left. Actually, let me just look at the history here of the light heavyweight division. UFC light heavyweight champions. We look here. So I just need to get the most recent ones. Do they have this up to date as to where we are today? Oh yeah, this is from 2023. Here we go. List of UFC champions. This is what we're going to look at. So if you go look at the light heavyweight division, Carlos Ulberg is the champ. Let's go all the way to the bottom here. Shout out to Wikipedia. And now I'm going all the way down to middleweight. Okay. So if we look here at Ulberg, right? We just have Ulberg as the new champ. Before that was Pereira. Pereira lost the fight before that to Ankalaev, who's champ didn't even get one title defense. Pereira had a couple title defenses. So to his credit, that was probably the most active we've seen the belt in a number of years. Jamal Hill obviously had the belt from beating Teixeira. That title was vacant, I believe, because Yuri had to vacate because of his injury. And then, of course, Jamal beats Glover. He has to vacate. And then it goes Alex Pereira and Yuri. And then you go back even further. Yuri beats Glover because it was, I'm trying to go all the way back here. So John obviously had a number of title defenses. He had a couple reigns, obviously, with all the PEDs and everything else. And then they did the vacant title fight, the number one contender. Jones vacated the belt with salary negotiation, no desire to compete at heavyweight. And then Jan Blachowicz and Reyes, I don't think I guess that was for the vacant title, was it not? When they fought, just want to double check that. Again, that was a couple years back, guys, so you can understand. So that was the vacant title. So basically, since Jones has left, look at all this activity that's happened. It's been short title reigns. Again, Pereira's had a couple title defenses here, but it's been injuries. Think about it. Since John Jones has vacated the belt, we've now had 2 champions vacate their titles because of injuries, and they would again come back and try and get their titles back, but not come up, not being able to do it. And then you had Pereira lose to Ankalaev. Ankalaev can't defend the belt. He loses to Pereira, and then Pereira bolts to heavyweight. Now we got Ulberg and Yuri. Now Ulberg might be out for a bit. So I don't think I'm saying anything crazy here. This is a very cursed division right now as far as what we're looking at. I should mention as well that Robert Whittaker is going to be moving up to 205, but we're talking about a 35-year-old who's going to be 36 in December and someone that is, coming off back-to-back losses at middleweight. Maybe he'll look a little bit better, but I don't know what type of run Whittaker's going to go on at 35 in this weight class. I do worry a bit. You look at the height and reach here, 6 feet tall with a 73.5 inch reach. That's not exactly big compared to someone like, say, a Magomed Ankalaev, who comes in at 6'3" with a 75 inch reach. So I guess the reach is kind of similar there between the two. But again, I wonder, is Whittaker going to be able to put on enough muscle? Is he going to be fast in this weight class? I don't know. I hope Whittaker does well. I think it would be much needed for the 205 division, but I'm not that optimistic that Whittaker's going to go on some crazy title run at 35 years of age, not to mention the fact that Whittaker's been finished a few times now, right? So if we look at Robert Whittaker, I don't know how I lost that tab there. He's been finished a couple times, right? And you go back to his welterweight days, he's been knocked out 3 times. He's been submitted twice. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in this weight class, but I'm not expecting much. So yeah, it's a disaster right now. And I don't know how the UFC fixes it. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of an interim. Like I said, I think they're going to end up doing an interim title here for the weight class, because I just don't think you can sit around too long. They're going to have events coming up. Also, let's not forget either, with them doing the White House card and then probably making a pretty strong international fight week card, you're going to be left with a lot of, events that are going to need headliners. And yes, there's some champions that haven't fought yet this year, like Valentina Shevchenko, Mackenzie Dern. There's been some fights like that, but those aren't like marquee big fights that the UFC would probably feel comfortable headlining a numbered event. So I'm going to predict they are going to do a light heavyweight title fight. I'm going to predict they do Paulo Costa and Khalil Roundtree, because that is the most exciting fight between two fighters that are ranked highly, and I don't think they care that Khalil's coming off a loss, and I think Magomed Ankalaev is going to get shafted and we'll have to fight someone else. I don't know who that is. Maybe he ends up fighting Bogdan. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going to go on, but yeah, things are not good at light heavyweight. I think what everyone wants here is more consistency, like a champion that can defend his belt a few times, that's not super old and is not going to bolt to heavyweight either. So that's where we're at right now. 205, it's not looking so good. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is going to happen with the 205-pound division? What are some matchups you'd like to see made? And do you think they should do an interim title, or do you think you wait it out for Olberg? Let me know your thoughts on all that. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.